Paddington is back for yet another installment in the franchise. This one is called Paddington in Peru. It was released in the UK a couple of months ago, I believe, but we have it sandwiched in between the UK and the US release, and we're getting it this week. Paddington in Peru sees our titular hero back in the Americas, his homeland, for another adventure involving Antonio Banderas and Olivia Colman. Like, they seem to be having an absolutely fantastic time in this movie.
Yeah, totally.
So this one takes Paddington and the Browns out of London and off on a foreign adventure. It feels a lot like what old-fashioned sequels used to do. After you've hit the third or fourth movie, at some point, there is a European trip. In this case, they've taken Paddington to the Americas. Now, this movie has a very challenging hurdle in the fact that Paddington 2 was reviewed better than Citizen Kane.
Fuck off.
Seriously, it had more positive reviews than Citizen Kane, right?
I officially say fuck off.
You're alone on this one, Bahir, because it is a pop culture landmark. So Paddington in Peru obviously has a lot to live up to. Dougal Wilson is directing this one. He takes over from Paul King, who was clearly doing Wonka. However, he kind of maintains the same tone of the franchise. Now, the problem with Paddington in Peru is that I think it is almost impossible to live up to the hype of what Paddington 2 was. And so it's coming in with a bit of a crutch already. That said, I still think it's better than 80 to 90% of children's movies that you will encounter. Only because Paddington, shows like Bluey, like Hilda, aren't frenetic and overstimulating.
Yeah.
Like a lot of kids' programs these days are just catering to the basest instinct of children, right? Short attention spans. You just keep things moving. Fuck story, fuck emotion, fuck pacing. And Paddington in Peru, or the Paddington movies in general, aren't that. They don't talk down to children. They take their time to tell the story. They kind of put an emphasis on character and kindness. And it's all just very wholesome and life-affirming. And I think this movie does that very well. And so for me, while Paddington in Peru isn't a great film, it still hits all the marks of a Paddington movie, and I enjoyed it very, very much.
Okay.
You have no soul.
I think
You only watched the Paddington movies this year. I don't know how it took you that long.
last year, my friend.
Okay, 2024, big difference.
2024, yeah.
I don't know why it took you that long to watch these just magnificent films.
I don't have any historical relationship to the
But
bear.
it doesn't matter.
But that's my point. Like, I had no historical
Attachment.
relationship attachment to the bear. So when the movies came out, it was movies I avoided. Just because, like, I don't want to waste time on this. And to be honest, in 2024, I realized, you know what? I'll check it out. But I still agree. I don't want to waste my time on it.
How? It is such beautiful, joyous, kind filmmaking.
And that's fine. I'm not 12.
It doesn't matter though.
I agree with you. It doesn't matter.
But you can appreciate the movies for what they are.
Look, I appreciate the movies for what they are. I think they're very much done for a specific audience. People who, I don't know, need a little bit of whatever in their life. I feel like I didn't need any of that. So as I was watching this, I was like, no, this is fine. The adventure's great. Antonio Banderas is hilarious. Olivia Colman's, I was going to say overacting, but she's overacting very much in Olivia Colman character. So I wasn't offended by it at all. But, honestly, I wouldn't recommend this to any of my nephews or my nieces who are older than 14 or even 12. It just feels like it's very much done for a young market, and that's great. I completely agree with everything you said earlier about how this isn't a frenetic thing. This isn't a sensory overload the way a lot of new animated features targeted towards kids are expected to be. I appreciate and I love the fact that there is an actual story here. There's an A to a B to a C to an ending that is sufficient and that is satisfying. I was just bored. Like, the comedy doesn't work for me. The Paddington comedy doesn't work for me at all.
Because this feels like peak British comedy for me.
British comedy doesn't work for me. I can't
Really?
stand it.
So
I
are
find
you
it
not
really
a
annoying.
fan of things like Spaced and Blackadder?
I love Blackadder. I like Spaced. But things like Red Dwarf, I think is stupid as fuck.
Wow.
I think
you
Red
get out.
Dwarf-
You get out right now.
Sure, if you want.
What the
No, but
fuck?
like Red Dwarf, I don't find it funny.
This is a side of you I did not know before.
For me, like the newer English comedies don't work for me. Like I love Blackadder. Like Blackadder, I will put on just because I'm bored. Yeah, Red Dwarf doesn't work for me at all. Like I think Spaced is cute, but I'm glad it only ran for the limited number of episodes it did because I don't know how far it will stretch.
So I couldn't disagree with you more with regards to who you would recommend this movie for, in the sense that I think there is something here for everyone, irrespective of age, if simply because of the way it is written and structured. And I look to something like Out of the Nest, which is also opening this week, as a comparison, because I think we can make the same arguments with it hits all the right beats and it has a narrative that is somewhat coherent and has a very good ending and is technically sound. However, there is a distinct difference between the storytelling of something like Out of the Nest, where it clearly only would appeal to anyone below the age of 7, and Paddington in Peru, for example, which has a lot more emphasis on character and I'd say even humor. I think the jokes are quite layered. I think there are little bits of Britishisms that only adults would get, or only people who are familiar with Englishness would get. And I think all of that stuff works beyond just the child audience. For me, this is like Enid Blyton or Roald Dahl, where
Sure.
there's something for everyone, irrespective of age.
Sure. What I mean is that I don't know anybody who I can recommend this. So like physically in my head,
Even grown-ups. Like, I've recommended the first 2 Paddington movies to grown-ups who have absolutely adored it.
that just means your circle of friends and or family members are more elevated.
But is
I
this
cannot
elevated though? This doesn't feel very elevated.
No, but my point is I can't think of any of my relatives, any of my siblings, my parents, my wife's parents, my wife's families that I could recommend this and not get laughed out of the room.
Wow.
Yeah. And I would agree with them. Like I saw Paddington 1 and 2 and I'm like, yeah, this is fine. I get all the moments of heart, the moments of humor, didn't laugh at all. And it just sort of like, yeah, it's there. lah. It works if you like Paddington. I didn't enjoy any of the previous films. And I'm just like, this is fine. This is structurally sound as a film.
I think it's wholesome in a way that people can relate to, irrespective of whether or not they know the bear. Like, my wife didn't grow up with Paddington. It was not in her wheelhouse. I don't think she read the Michael Bond stories.
Sure.
But I think the movies have a certain quality about them.
Mm.
And I think it's that storytelling quality and it's the morals behind those stories that she eventually could relate to, irrespective of whether or not she knew the character.
Neither me nor my wife enjoyed it. Like we watched the first 2 together and she was just like, yeah, okay, I get it. But no.
Huh.
Yeah.
Different strokes for different folks, huh?
Absolutely. And here's the thing. This isn't like The Room kind of situation where I think you're crazy if you think that's a great film. This is, I can see there's a great film here. It just didn't work for me. I am clearly and very openly admitting that it's a me problem and not a movie problem.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So, yeah, like there's a bit in the end when there's a chase and it's cute, but like you were laughing at it. I didn't snicker not one bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. we will respectfully agree to disagree on this one.
I'm
For the
not saying
sake of our friendship, for the sake of our friendship.
No, but that's the thing, right? I don't think I'm trying to convince anyone that this isn't good.
No,
I'm saying
I get what you're
accept
saying. You're
that
not saying it's a bad movie.
Yeah.
And I think it goes back to the anime problem. In that it's not that Cowboy Bebop is a terrible anime, it just doesn't work for you.
Yes.
The rest of the world may disagree and love it. but it
That's
doesn't
fine.
work for you.
That's okay. I'm happy. I'm also on the wrong side of a lot of things, but it's fine.
I think there were a couple of things that I was particularly surprised about with Paddington in Peru. One is that this was Dougal Wilson's debut feature.
Okay.
And I think it is pretty accomplished for a debut feature because making a movie like this following Paddington 1 and 2 is a difficult task to begin with. It's also not an easy feature because you're traveling to Peru, you're doing all of these things in the jungle, there's a lot of CGI elements to play with, there are loads of narrative threads going on, and I think he handles all of that very well for a first-time director.
He's mostly just done music videos.
There you go.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So this is quite impressive for a first-time director. Also following up on Paul King, which is a very difficult thing to do if you ask me.
Yeah.
The other thing I was worried about was Emily Mortimer.
I was
Because
gonna
obviously
say, yeah.
she's taking over the role of Mrs. Brown. And honestly, I didn't notice.
I will say Sally Hawkins was the only reason I truly paid attention to Paddington 1 and 2.
Like, don't get me wrong, Sally Hawkins is amazing.
I am so in love with Sally Hawkins. I was disappointed and heartbroken when I found out she wasn't going to be in this one. And I almost didn't want to go and watch it.
Almost. That was the reason why.
To be fair, the only reason I did go and watch it was because I had to do it for work.
But Sally Hawkins' brilliance aside, I think Emily Mortimer rose to the occasion, and I thought she embodied Mrs. Brown really well. I didn't notice. Honestly speaking, I didn't notice.
I felt like Emily Mortimer brought a different energy compared
Yes.
to Sally Hawkins. And I'm not sure I liked Emily Mortimer's energy in this one. I preferred Sally Hawkins's slightly more... She brought a different class in the British class system thing. Her portrayal is very much the English upper class, maybe, but sweet. Whereas Emily Mortimer's got, and this is just like an Emily Mortimer thing that I've noticed, she's got a bit of a weird nervous energy thing going on, which I'm not sure I love in this one.
I thought that kind of worked with where she was with regards to her family drifting apart. And so I thought it kind of fit the story that they were trying to tell in this one. But as much as I love this movie, I have one nitpick.
Okay.
This is really a me thing.
Okay.
I would have preferred it if they didn't go to Peru. In that, for me, Paddington is a London bear.
Right.
And I grew up reading the Michael Bond stories, and I feel like there are many adventures to be had in London. And it feels like filmmakers wanted to escalate the situation because they'd done 2 London stories, and now they're like, let's go on an adventure.
Yeah.
Let's take the Griswolds to Europe, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And in this case, sure, it was fun, and they got to go on this big adventure, but Paddington's a London bear, and I think he needs to stay in London.
I will agree with you with that. I mean, having seen the first 2, I think...
Because London is such an integral part to his story.
But I will also say that the reason for him leaving made sense.
It did.
It isn't just a, hey, let's go on a holiday. You know, there's a real call. Yeah.
No, all of the themes of identity and home and all of that stuff is great. And it was very well woven into who Paddington is as a bear. And who knows, with Paddington 4, they may explore that even further. There is a very, very funny gag in the post-credit sequence, which I really enjoyed, which ties back into the Londonness of it all. But that just really made me miss the fact that Paddington was not in London for most of this film.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but that's my only nitpick. I really liked it. I know you are just like, whatever, Uma, you forced me to go and watch this movie.
Yeah.
Yes. But you know what? I will say this. For the rest of the world, for the rest of you people listening, to those of you who actually enjoyed and loved Paddington 1 and 2, I don't think this will be disappointing. I don't think it is the pop culture phenomenon that was Paddington 2. However, it is a very solid third addition to the franchise, which is a lot more than you can ask for. God knows things like this often start going downhill very, very quickly. But Paddington in Peru does not disappoint. So, check out Paddington in Peru when it opens in Malaysian cinemas this week. Let us know what you think once you do. You know how to reach out. Goggler MY is what we are on Instagram. You can also email us on podcast@goggler.my or send us a WhatsApp on the Goggler hotline 012-524-5208. Thank you so much for listening. This is the Goggler Podcast.